Hi, Nikhil. So,
Yes.
as we start 2026, I thought one of the very pertinent things to discuss would be how we are planning NREV's journey in 2026. Maybe like we'll start with a few challenges and then we move to why we chose certain different paths, Nikhil. But your perspective on how we transform the world of GTM in a way that it moves from agency-based, implementations or very technical implementations of workflows to a more democratic or democratized access to people who are building strategies or who are actually operators in GTM
Mhm.
to set up these systems. I think that would be an interesting conversation to have. So we can discuss challenges both from the business side as well as technical, the technology side. But first, let's start with your perspective of what you've seen in terms of usage on NREV. And as we've built out multiple different things on NREV, what is it that excites you in terms of what we'll be solving first in 2026?
Yeah, so the exciting thing that we have observed in the last 6 months while we have been building NREV and pushing it out to our customers is the breadth and depth of use cases that we have been successfully been able to solve inside the platform. Ever since we started out, we had a very clear distinction that we do not want to give AI and agents complete control over what the people are trying to achieve because we saw that AI would get you to 60-70% and then stop, and then you will not be in a position to actually take it to completion and complete the loop. So we built a platform which did need a little bit of wiring together and a little bit of effort from the end of the end users, but it was able to solve anything and everything that you throw at it. And that is something that I am very happy about what we have been able to achieve in 2025. That also leads us into the kind of challenge that we have been facing, which is the lack of, which is a little bit of learning curve that is right now present into the system. And the major theme for 2026 for us, and I think for the entire world, is that we are going to make it as easy, as seamless, as little technical effort required as possible for the end users who are our GTM operators, who are the thought leaders in GTM, to be able to have a thought, have a plan, and be able to execute it inside the platform using AI. So AI is going to be AI agents, and completely driving the whole thing via AI agents is going to be a very important aspect for 2026. So,
Yeah, I think one of the very interesting parts is where we are kind of using the power of agents and the power of workflows in the right places to be able to build one, the deterministic systems, which even in a million times will not make a mistake, while also making it easier to set up these systems through
correct.
agents, right? And if you could
Correct.
touch upon that, Nikhil, like where we see the pros and cons of agents versus workflows and what we are using to leverage the strengths of both these types of AIs, that would be really helpful.
As you pointed out, right? So general real world GTM use cases are that I want to run a particular type of enrichment or automation with intelligence for 5,000 rows. Now, if you start going to AI and using AI agents for each of those rows, you will get 5,000 different outcomes. There is no reliability or consistency in the way some things will be done. The payloads will differ. Now, suppose you want to push all of that into your CRM or you want to create a campaign out of it. The amount of disparate data that you will end up with will be impossible to maintain. And that is where we have thought of agentic workflows as our platform, where the steps you will be using AI to build the workflows, build the steps, as well as individual units would be completely AI. But overall, the final thing would be workflow, which knows this is the way in which the input should come for a particular node. Then this is the way in which the output for a particular node would go out. This is what every new step would expect as an input, and this is what it needs to do. Right. So, example I'd like to, like I always kind of think about is that I'm an engineer, I'm a developer. So for a developer, if I have to build a product, I'll use AI to build the product. I'll not use AI to decide every time a button is clicked what action needs to be performed. So that is the thought process with which we thought ki like let's build an agentic workflows which is a workflow but which has agent as its individual pieces rather than throwing a prompt at agent and solving it. While what we have been doing is what we are going to focus heavily on in this year is to build those workflows as seamlessly with minimum effort, with minimum technical know-how as possible. So that is going to be the area that we are going to concentrate on.
No, makes sense. I think two learnings that come to my mind, which were huge learnings for the world also, was one when Salesforce came out and said that agents will not replace humans ultimately, right? And that whole concept of agent force went back in the entire thought process. They started hiring again. Yeah. And the second, which I was just thinking about, and I seem to have forgotten. But I think ultimately, like GTM, which is like very focused on sacrosanct systems of record, basically, your CRM is something that you don't want anything to go wrong in. Like your, reach outs cannot be embarrassing. Like the whole concept of AI SDR primarily failed because there were a lot of embarrassing reach outs that happened. Right. I think those were two big learnings from which we kind of wanted to get a little bit of inspiration as to kind of take the best out of both worlds, take the best out of the learnings
Exactly.
that we can, and how can we make GTM native while not embarrassing at all, right?
Yes.
Which requires like lot of threaded thought around where to use agents and where to use workflows. So yeah, very important point that Nikhil you mentioned. But yeah, now getting to the perspective of Nikhil, how are you thinking of using these agents? Right? How do these agents ultimately work to with one side we have the humans, right? The humans who are the architects, who are the are creating strategies, right? On one side, whereas there is some kind of a consultancy AI layer as well as a builder AI layer. And then this also, on the other hand, interacts with the workflows, right? So, what is your thought process as you're building this agent layer in the middle, which interacts with both humans as well as workflows?
Okay. Let me try to break this down into different sections. What would be so as a human, I think one thing that is uh, not going to be offloaded to AI is how you strategize. And you would need to have not just an understanding of what you want to achieve, but at a very broad level, a basic set of steps that you would need to do in order to achieve that. And that is basically at a top level strategy that you have to decide. As a human, you will need to do that. And you will also need to understand the basics of your data. Right. Why do you need to understand the basics of the of your data? Because as you mentioned, CRMs are sacrosanct, data is sacrosanct. You need to understand and validate what the AI is giving you because AI would do its will do our best to build an agent that will not let you down. It will get the correct data, but at least right now the world of AI is in a state that where you need a human eye to actually validate. Right. So that would be the two things that the user who is building, the human who is building on our platform would need to be cognizant about. Then comes the layer where our AI will come into picture. So, because for the 6 months we have been building and implementing so many different strategies and different systems inside our platform, we have now created a good, rich library of use cases and best practices and around what are the most best ways to solve a particular type of a problem, or at least at a sub problem. When you modularize it, the number of sub problems we are going to feed that into AI and kind of we are going to create a knowledge graph kind of a thing using which AI will learn and based on that it can take a lot of like decisions on how to achieve the steps of the strategy that the user has given it as a challenge, right?
And this
So
is based on workflows that have already been built out.
already been built, already being used, already automated, running every week on our customers and giving value to them. So, as well as the rich knowledge that we have developed by implementing every type of problem, every type of solution in our platform in the last 6 months. So, that is one thing that will be feeding into AI. Then there are a lot of technical aspects that we have to consider and worry about. We have to ensure that the context bloat does not happen, context rot does not happen. So we are going to spend a lot of energy on context engineering in order to ensure that the pristine good context is retained and used by AI while it's iterating over the process. We are going to, so one more thing that we have taken it as a part of our journey is that we analyzed how we as humans built those workflows. And we have taken that learning and created those iterative loops inside the agent. So basically, what it means is that the agent will first plan, then the agent will create something, then the agent will run that, then the agent will validate it, and then the agent will see, okay, if that has served the process, good enough, let me move to step two. If not, then I'll re-enter into the loop. And the agent will ask questions to the users wherever it is stuck or wherever it needs an input from the user. So, yeah, a lot of great tools out there right now, which we have taken a lot of inspiration from. But the majority of the work is based on how humans do it and how we have developed our knowledge base in the last 6 months.
Yeah, to me as a non-technical person, it sounds like you're creating the most experienced workflow builder, which has like literally learned from every single step that has happened. Like what has worked, the mistakes, what has happened on NREV for every user that has operated NREV is going to come in as a helper for any GTM operator to kind of help them set up these systems.
That's
That
the
is very
goal.
interesting. And
Well, when you mentioned it, I also remember like we are not right away, but in a couple of months, we'll be getting into a consultant kind of an agent as well, who would be, you can ideate with the consultant on, as you mentioned, the best practices, what has worked, what has, all of those things. You can ideate as well. So the strategizing section also, like I mentioned initially, you will have an AI sparring partner to ideate with you on that.
yeah, very interesting. Like I think today in the marketing world as well, Nikhil, from my perspective, I feel like one of the biggest, discussion points around marketers is the FOMO about what can be achieved with AI. And that too, what can be achieved credibly, right? Not what can be achieved that people just throw around saying that, AI can solve this, right? But what can be achieved and has been achieved by people according to outcomes. And I think learning from these experiences become a huge game in GTM overall, right? We want to know what are the best practices, best implementations, or what will specifically work for my organization based on, as you mentioned, the context of my systems of record, the context of what is already working for me, or what are the systems that are already in place. One thing around that, and I know you want to talk about that context about a particular company being built on NREV as well. But just before that, Nikhil, just wanted to quickly touch upon knowledge graphs a little bit because there's been a lot of talk about it, especially since Dharmesh Shah's article around the importance of knowledge graphs in coming SaaS or coming infrastructure as a service as well. PaaS, SaaS, anything like the importance of knowledge as well as why he's betting on graphs. Just from a layman's perspective, wanted to get your view of where the power of graphs come about, how are you planning to use it? And I don't know it can be a little repetitive, but if it's a little bit technical for non-technical folks, right? So if you can just touch upon that, that will be a nice conversation or a nice understanding to have from a non-technical standpoint.
Yeah, so the power of graphs has to be around like the smallest path using which you can reach to a particular uh, destination or a node that we call, right? And every piece of knowledge will reside into the system, but how do you create a graph out of it so that you can so that the agent can reach it using the minimum number of steps? It knows where to look for, it knows where to go there and reach and understand that particular knowledge graph and use it to the best of its capabilities. The problems arise because if you throw everything to the agent at a particular point of time, it does not know what is useful for it at this point of time in its journey as against what might or might not be useful. That is where this graph comes into the picture where you know, okay, and when I need to do this, this is where I reach out, this is where I go and understand and use this particular thing, and then I move forward as an agent. So the context remains under control as well as you reach out to it in the best possible way.
Got it. And if I just talk about this common hypothesis of how graph rags is better than just a rag, and just want to get a view on that, Nikhil. Do graph rags also hold more context than regular rag because of the traversal that you were talking about?
Yeah, so there's a lot of metadata that gets added to graph rag, which is not present in traditional rag when we look at traditional rag from a vector DB kind of perspective. So there is no semantic meaning or linkage associated between different things that are present there. I mean, among the suppose there is a knowledge piece, there is a whole. semantic meaning associated inside that, but this piece does not really know what is happening around, what is the other linkages or graphs that this particular piece is linking to with. When these kind of metadata can be very easily and properly enriched in a knowledge graph, that gives the power that makes things much easier.
I think the closest analogy that I can think of is, libraries transformed from having, ordered books from A to Z, then into different sections like history, let's say Second World War, things of that nature. And would you say
Mm.
that is the kind of transformation that is happening when we move away from like a vector DB to a graph frag?
Yeah, that is a very nice, I think, analogy, and it kind of fits because in a knowledge graph, you would have parents and then child, and then the whole graph built out of it. And so that is like similar to how you can imagine, okay, this is the science section, this is the physics section, this is the mechanics section, this is thermodynamics. So you can drill down and basically have a much better understanding of the in depth of a particular knowledge, right? So something similar, yes, I think that would be a great analogy.
And then just relating it back to workflows, Nikhil, while again, we'll definitely touch upon the context of each company as well. But just before that, just wanted to understand, then is this kind of also creating certain super aware or like super experienced agents which specialize in, let's say, creating workflows that maybe leverage LinkedIn nodes to leverage, let's say, Google search nodes to specialized agents that leverage maybe even setting up certain internal, like your CRM connections or Slack connections, those kind of things.
Yes, they will have basically there's two parts of it. One is they will have these agents, we are going to feed them on how to use these individual nodes that we were talking about, when to use them. All of that metadata enrichment will be there. And on top of it, there will also be a linkage or mapping of use cases to these nodes
Hmm.
being used in a particular order or a particular approach, how they have tied back to the use cases that the customers had and solved using these kind of nodes. So when we combine both of them, right, at a high strategizing level, the AI will agent will look at these use cases to nodes mapping and what could be used. Then when it goes inside a node, it will know how do I best use this Google search node or a LinkedIn search node, right? And using the combination of these two, we are planning to solve this out.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. And like again, from my perspective, what I understand is there are going to be different levels to the knowledge as well, apart from it just being a graph, right? So there's basically a node level knowledge, then there is a group of node or like a functionality level knowledge, then there's a
Yes.
workflow level knowledge, and then ultimately we are getting to, like when we talk about the consultant, then we are getting to use case level knowledge. Right? What all use cases fit together, then what kind of
Yes.
outcomes it gets to. And then Nikhil,
Yes.
touching upon how are you thinking about kind of making it very personal to each organization? How does the AI then kind of learn from maybe the data of different organizations or how the systems are placed with each other or what are the different systems? And then kind of integrating all of these layers together.
Yeah, so the inspiration that I'm drawing from is how ChatGPT uses memory to have customized knowledge about us and what we like, basic information and knowledge about us. What we'll be doing is for a particular organization, we are going to kind of build a memory. That memory needs to be a living, breathing organism, which with every new use case being solved, it learns from it, it understands where the data needs to go eventually in order to for it to be useful, in what format, what are the constraints that are going to have been solved in other workflows in the past. When you have all of that and it keeps on adding, so like the different levels that you mentioned, like the node level, inside even a node, we have a field level knowledge understanding by the agent, then a node level, then a workflow level, then a group of nodes level, like all of these together. And horizontally, with each of them, there would be a context that is organization specific context. This is how we do things, right? So customers can go and update these uh, like
Memories, as you're calling them.
as well as with new workflows that are getting solved, we are going to keep on adding and updating those memories. But yeah, this is a very interesting uh, area where this is very tangential. Like this is all the harnessing around an agent or a work AI. It is not really an AI. That is also a lot of research is happening around the world in many vertical domains. People are trying to solve this, and we are also going to keep on learning and keep on improving and trying to achieve all of this.
Yep. And I think one place where AI is really powerful is abstract research, maybe not a lot of in-depth research, but abstract research. And this really like understands the problems through different kinds of data. Like for example, if I'm quite sure that my CRM can has a lot of data that can tell me, what kind of customers I really need to chase or what kind of customers are slipping through, or let's say even thinking about certain motions, right? Is my inbound today not as powerful as my outbound motion? These
Hmm.
kind of data patterns is something that I think AI can spot pretty well, because these are abstract research rather than very in-depth research, and then can suggest really what the operator needs to focus on, and then also learnings from different organizations, and then kind of throwing to them what kind of workflows can be really helpful for them. And I think just thinking
Definitely.
about that is very exciting as a
Yes,
marketer, I
yes, yes.
think.
This is where AI shines because right, even till now, the area where there is a little bit of friction is that when we go down to the bottom at the last level, like how do I be 100% reliant on AI? But if you throw a huge amount of data at it. Of course, you will do a lot of work in order to structure it in the best possible way. But the first round of ideation, the first round of understanding, which then the AI can present to you, and you can work with it to build the understanding even deeper and deeper. This is AI where AI definitely shines, right? So we are going to leverage that a lot.
Perfect. So, just to close out, Nikhil, I just wanted to ask a very silly question, but it's a question, nevertheless, that is asked quite often in the world of GTM, right? And this could be because of fear, this could be because of the anxious marketers or GTM people that we are. But is AI moving towards more autonomous GTM, or where do you see the world of, let's say, 2027, 2028? What does it look like in terms of, how GTM is going to evolve?
Okay, that's 2027, 2028 is a difficult question to answer because the speed at which things are changing in the world of AI and GTM is also going to be impacted with it. It's not difficult to actually understand or predict what will happen in 2027, 2028. But I think for 2026, I can say that, see, fully autonomous GTM is a little uh, difficult to achieve. So I know we use the words AI agents, but one thing where humans are right now irreplaceable is what we can call as agency. Having a goal and iterating and course correcting to get there. I know AI can do it at a smaller scale, but at a very larger scale, at a very abstract level, AI works well if you give it either an abstract research requirement is absolutely fine. It'll do all the research and give you 10 possible outcomes. But when you want to achieve one particular outcome, you need to be very precise. So that is where I think completely autonomous AI agents is not really going to be a possibility in 2026, in my understanding. And it's we are heading towards is a place where a lot of people who have ideas in their brain and who want to execute them, AI will give them all the tools needed to achieve that with very limited technical know-how. But as I mentioned in the beginning, they need to know and own the strategy, and they need to know and own the data, the outcome, right? So when you know and understand all of those two things, AI is going to become very powerful GTM or any other vertical as well. When you have these two things under control, you can iterate, you can reach a particular goal, you can know, okay, this is working or not. And once you do that, AI will be able to do this. But we cannot expect AI autonomous agents to create plans for you and get them to execution all in one go. That's not going to be a reality in the next 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think then we're probably thinking about a state where we can hand over our businesses to AI.
Yeah, that's a uh, that gets into a metaphysical kind of a discussion. Okay, what would we do
Yeah, yeah,
then?
correct, correct. And honestly, I don't see it happening in the recent future. Because I mean that's like thinking about or asking the question that, basically when are we expecting AGI to come? So it's a very difficult concept to kind of define as well as even think about it kind of coming in. So yeah, and even I honestly feel that in the recent future that we have ahead of us, like 1 or 2 years at least, it's going to be us humans who kind of set the goals, set the strategies, set the architecture of how GTM is going to run. And then, of course, AI does all the grunt work and maybe more than grunt work, right? Maybe,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, the things
yeah,
that
yeah.
you told me, like set up the framework for the grunt work, set
Yes,
up the
yes, yes.
framework and automations for anything that needs to be done. But yeah,
So we call it like tooling, right? So like if you look at the evolution of AI, it started like not AI but ChatGPT. It started in 2022 and like a chatbot, and you could ask it questions and it would answer it. But in 2025, we saw the real power of agents coming to the fore with, I mean, the industry leaders being Cloud Code, Cursors, and Codex, and all the other coding platforms of the world just went with it, added a ton of tool, added a ton of ability for AI to iterate over things. So in the next 1 to 2 years, I'm pretty certain that we are going to see a lot of maturity coming into tooling around an AI, which you would be in a state that you just like you would be able to solve so many use cases that by the time these tools mature along with AI, right? These tools will also embed a lot of AI inside it so that they are also not hard coded or hard wired as to how to do a particular thing. They can also take decisions using AI. As you mentioned, like, but I think maybe by 2028 or something, when these tools have matured, we'll be in a position that we won't be able to understand the difference between an agent with a lot of tools and a very powerful AI LLM and an AGI. How do we know when AGI
correct,
hits?
correct. I think just to clarify on the GTM side, I think HubSpot basically calls this tooling thing skills. And yeah, just to clarify for the the GTM audience, and you're absolutely right, Nikhil. It's very difficult to kind of know that if there are 100 skills that an agent has at its disposal, it's very difficult to know or draw boundaries on what AGI looks like. But thank you so much for your time, Nikhil. This was lovely having a discussion. And yeah, let's look forward to 2026 being the year where GTM transforms.
Thank you.
Recording